Good morning, everybody. It's me, Abhay, and welcome to my YouTube channel. It's my first time making videos like this, so please don't judge and take it as a grain of salt. So, without any further ado, let's get started with our video. So, today's video's topic is about constitutional law, which, of course, has the Constitution, the picture of the Constitution, my country, Nepal, the justice, and the map of my country, and also the title Constitutional Law by Law Student of Ebora. So, without any further ado, let's get started. So, what is law? Everybody has heard about the term law. So, now let's define it. Law is a set of rules and principles bestowed upon the citizens of the nation by the sovereign authority to maintain peace, equity, equality, order, and to minimize crime. So as you all can see, here is the lady of justice who is blind, who does not take any sides while citing out justice. So from this, the basic knowledge we got was is the law is the set of rules and regulations bestowed upon the citizens of the nation by the sovereign authority. So what is the sovereign authority in question right now? So the sovereign authority is the ruling body of the nation. The sovereign authority can be anything, the legislative and the supreme authority, more like the monarchs if you're in a monarchical system, or the president or the prime minister, somebody like that. And it has and the main reason why law is here is to maintain peace, equity. If you didn't know the more in-depth meaning of equity, it is equal to equal, unequal to unequal. So now, equity, equality, and order plus with the sole purpose to minimize crime. So that was the basic definition of law. So now let's move on. So now what is a constitution? So like many of us have heard about the term constitution many times. You might have heard your teacher say it like the constitution of Nepal was amended on 2072 BS. So basically, right now, it is the digital representation. These books over here are the digital representation of the Constitution. So now, let's explain what's a Constitution. A Constitution is a legal codified document containing all legal statutes, schedules, subschedules, articles, and rights and duties. It is the supreme law of land, often known as the parent law. It can either be in written form or an unwritten form. A constitution of a nation is its biggest sign of democracy. So, from this, what have we learned? A constitution is the supreme law of land of a nation. It is a legal codified document containing all the laws, the schedules, the subschedules, articles, and rights and duties of each and every citizen. So now, like it can either be in a written form, like in a single codified document, like this thing over here, like these things over here, or it can be in an unwritten form. Like just because the term is like unwritten does not mean that it's written. It's just not written in like one separate book of its own. It's written in like many various codified documents out there. So, yes, and as I said, a constitution of a nation is its biggest symbol of democracy. What do I mean by democracy? So, now let's get on to that. Democracy's motto for the people, by the people, to the people. Democracy is when the power to run the government is in the general public's hand, not a specific monarch, not a specific dictator, but it's in the hands of the people to develop the nation. As you can see, I elaborated it further with a picture or a PNG of many people holding out flags to symbolize their freedom and their freedom to vote. So, like for the people, what does for the people mean? Democracy, like people rule and people make the rules for themselves, for us. The general public cares about us. So it's for the people, by the people, just like I said. To make laws for the people themselves make the law. So it's by the people, to the people, just like for the people. It is for our own good. It is given towards us. In contrast, that's a very good point to understand. Like it's the more you know, the better. So let's move on. Okay, let's move on to the slides. And okay, so now what is constitutional law? Like you've heard me say that in like the front in like the intro and the theme of the video, I said something about constitutional law. So, constitutional law is the elaboration of laws and principles everybody has to follow. It is basically the study of the supreme law of land. Just like I said, the supreme law of land is known as the Constitution. The Constitution is also known as the parent law and the mother law. So now, the Constitution is a very important and integral part of a nation to maintain its democracy and to have good laws inside of its nation. So, constitutional law is basically the elaboration of the laws and principles set out by the Constitution. Let's move on. So, now many people might be confused on the term constitutionalism. So, what is constitutionalism? You see, you might be like this fine gentleman over here who's confused, staring at the Lady of Justice. So, well, don't worry not, because I am here. So, constitutionalism is a phenomenon which occurs when a nation's laws are derived from its constitution. So, picture this: there is a nation. For example, let's take my nation, Nepal. Nepal's laws are taken from the constitution, like there are many laws against stealing. The laws against stealing are elaborated in the Constitution. The laws derived from the Constitution, and the country which follows the laws that are derived from the Constitution is known as the process of constitutionalism. The complete following of the Constitution, in short terms, is known as constitutionalism. Moving on. So, look, as I said before, when I elaborated what is a constitution, I said it can either be in a written form or an unwritten form. So we're going to delve deep into that topic right now. So as you can see, I elaborated further with these images of the constitution over here. The types of constitution, as mentioned above, the constitution of a nation is its supreme law of land, in which all statutes, schedules, subschedules, articles, and rights and duties of each citizen are cited. Moving on. There are two types of constitution. Number one, a written constitution. Just like I said further, now let's elaborate what's a written constitution to you all. So, look, in this constitution, all the laws are inside a single legal codified document. Nepal follows a written constitution which was amended by its constituent assembly in 2072 BS, and I elaborate further. BS is like a calendar system in Nepal which is followed strictly by Nepal, not by any other country. So like don't get surprised, like 2072 isn't the year like 2025. How the hell is Nepal already in the future? It's just a way of elaborating the date system in Nepal. So yes, I elaborate further. BS does not stand for AD. We are not living in the future, guys. In 2072 BS, the strongest example of a written constitution is the Constitution of the United States. As I said, our constitution was formed by a constituent assembly at 2072 BS. So like in the written constitution, there is this single book. There's this single book in which all the laws, the statutes, and articles are mentioned in a single legal codified document. There is a single specific book named Nepal's Constitution for this, which means, in basic terms, it is basically all the laws put up in a single legal document, in a single legal codified document. So now moving on, let's go. So here I put out some facts to know so that you guys may have a basic elaborative definition of what I'm talking about. So did you know, facts to know, US's constitution was the first written constitution amended on September 17, 1787. There again, the more you know, the more you know, the more you digest, the more you can elaborate further and properly. So, as I said before, the example of the strongest written constitution was the Constitution of the United States. And coincidentally, the first constitution was formed by the United States at September 17, 1787 AD. Awesome, right? And then this is the most common type of constitution. As I said, many countries follow this written constitution. Nepal, India, China, America, Pakistan, many countries, except for five separate countries do not follow this type of constitution, but the rest follow this type of constitution. And the constitution contains articles. And which constitution has the most articles? India. India's constitution has the most articles, containing 448 articles as of now. and elaboratively, as I said, as of now, because a constitution is not like something which does not change. It is not stationary, it is progressive into the future. The laws are made to suit people's desires and to suit the order. So as of now, I said that because later constitutions might amend, which might change this fact. Who knows? And currently in my country, Nepal's constitution has 308 articles as of now. So now let's move on to the next type of constitution, which is the unwritten constitution. Okay, the unwritten constitution is the type of constitution in which there is not a single legal codified document but multiple legal documents posing as the supreme law of land. The strongest example of an unwritten constitution is the Constitution of the United Kingdom. So, as I said, just because the name says unwritten constitution does not mean that the constitution is not written. It just means that the constitution is written in various types of documents, such as, picture this: I am a law student who studies in grade 11. I study law. There are three subjects in law: constitutional law, jurisprudence law, and procedural law. Those have three separate books of them. But that just doesn't that's like almost like an example in contrast of constitutional law, in which, like, in a written constitution, there is a single book containing all articles and laws. Just like I said, just like I used the example of my law studies, jurisprudence, procedural, and all, they all fall under law, but they are not part of the same book. Just like this, in an unwritten constitution, there are various documents speaking about this. There are various documents citing the laws, rights, and duties of its citizens. And strongest example of an unwritten constitution is the Constitution of United Kingdom. So now, did you know? This is the rarer version of the constitution, with only five countries like the United Kingdom, Netherlands, Lebanon, Israel, and Saudi Arabia following it. As I said, the written constitution was the most common archetype of the constitution, in which most countries followed the written type of constitution, including mine, including America, including China, including India, including Pakistan, including Bangladesh, yada yada yada. So now look, only five countries use this constitution. So that makes it more rarer than the constitution we talked about earlier, with countries like the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, the Lebanon, and Israel, and Saudi Arabia using this type of constitution. This type of constitution does not have a specific date in which it was formed. Want to know why? As you know, amend, the subject amend, the word amend basically means to, what do you call it, to legalify and to proceed and to use it. That's why the written constitution always has amend, and there's a date in which it was amended. But an unwritten constitution has like many archetypes. Like, there's one book talking about this law, there's another book talking about this law. There's not a single legal codified document, so it's impossible to find out like which day it formed. Like, one book was formed at this time, the other book was formed at that time, but those books form like a single constitution. So this constitution does not have a specific date in which it was formed. It is gradually, what do you call it, gradually progressing. This constitution is more flexible and less rigid than the written constitution. Of course, this constitution is obviously more like flexible and less rigid because, like, you have a single written codified document at the written constitution. Compared to this, we don't have like a single book. Like, it is harder to change stuff which is already written in a codified document than to change stuff which is written in multiple sources. So now moving on further. So now, as I mentioned earlier over here, the word rigid and flexible. So there are two types of written constitutions on how, there are two types of ways to amend a written constitution. So now, let's see, what's a rigid constitution? A rigid constitution is a type of constitution which needs a two-third majority or a 67% majority to amend. It is less flexible and tedious to amend. Nepal follows a rigid constitution. As I said, the legislative body, there are three government bodies or three government organs, and according to my law, so there are actually four government organs, but let's focus on three: the judiciary, the executive, and the legislative. The constitution is formed by the legislative, which is usually the parliament of the nation. And inside the parliament, there is a group, the parliamentary assembly. And there are various numbers of people in a country's parliament. So to amend the constitution, all those people must agree, like a certain half of those people must agree to amend it. But in a rigid constitution, the numbers needed to amend is much more. Like a rigid constitution requires a two-third majority or 67% majority to amend. Like that is hard by itself. Picture this: if there are like 10 people, there are like 10 people in a room, and all of you want to make types of laws and all stuff like that. So now 7 people need to agree to make a law. Like it is much more tedious and much more harder. Like if 3 people disagree and 7 people agree, the law is amending. If 5 people agree and 5 people don't agree, it's still not going to be amended because it is a rigid constitution. It is less flexible and tedious to amend. Obviously, like come on, like less people, lesser time, easier. More people, more time, harder. And my country, Nepal, follows a rigid constitution which faces a lot of problems because of this. Because they make, what do you call it, a vote of trust or something like that. It takes a long time. Amending laws takes a long time. It's very tedious. Like yeah, it's not a recommended system, but many countries follow it. So moving on. And also I apologize for my English and my accent, because like English is not my primary, what do you call it, primary language. I actually speak Nepalese. So like I don't speak English as my first language, so that it's not that fluent, so I apologize for it. Anyways, moving on. What's a flexible constitution? So as you can see, look, there are many ways it can go to. Like flexible, a flexible constitution is the type of constitution which only needs a 50% plus 1% majority to amend. So unlike the rigid constitution, which required 67% majority or the two-third majority to amend, this type of constitution does not require that amount of tediousness to amend. Like the laws are amended much more easier. It is less rigid and easier to amend, just like I said earlier. And India follows a flexible constitution, just like I said earlier. Like India follows a flexible constitution. Coincidentally, it also is the nation with the most articles. So yeah, like I said, less people, lesser time, easier time. That's flexible constitution for you. Rigid constitution, more people, more time, harder to amend. That's rigid constitution for you. Now let's move on. Now, constitution making process in various ways. Like obviously, everything has a making process. Like how we were born, we also had a making process about the gestation period, something like that. Like the constitution did not appear just whoosh, did not just appear out of nowhere. It has to have a making process, and there are 4 various types of making process which I've prepared in front of you. So now let's get started. Constitution made by the Constituent Assembly. So there are 4 types of methods to make the constitution, as I've elaborated further over here. So now the first method is by the assembly. So in this method, members are elected to form an assembly. Members are elected by the people in the executive body to form an assembly of whatever people, 100 people, 200 people, whatever they want. They are elected, and they later make laws, make a group of laws, articles, statutes and all, and they create a draft. And the draft, look, the assembly later works as a legislative body of the nation and drafts a single legal codified document containing the supreme law of land. So that's basically they draft a constitution which is later reviewed by the monarch or the head of state. The monarch is the king, the head of state is the president, is always the president. And only in a parliamentary system, the head of state is the president and the head of government is the prime minister. Exactly. So the head of state just then legalifies it and just says, okay, this can be amended, let's amend it, and finalizes the product. And the example, in contrast, of my country, Nepal, is the Constitution of Nepal 2072 BS. I again elaborate, we are not in the future. BS is just a way to express the date in Nepalese terms. The Constitution of Nepal 2072 BS was amended by the Constituent Assembly. So the Constitution of Nepal 2072 was actually amended by this Constituent Assembly. This was drafted by them. And also there's a fun fact. So previously an assembly before this was made to draft the constitution, but they failed. So they had to make another assembly to make the constitution. The more you know, the better. So that was the constitution made by assembly. Now we are moving on to constitution made by commission. So members are chosen by the monarch or the ruling elite. Again, time to elaborate. So unlike like this is almost like an assembly but in lesser numbers, consisting of like probably 15 people or something like that, 15 to 20 people. And instead of getting elected, the people are directly chosen by the monarch or the ruling elite. Then those people like form those group of people form a commission and then they draft a constitution. Look, those members then form a commission, then draft a commission, and then the drafted constitution is reviewed by the monarch or the ruling elite and amended. So these people make laws. They draft a constitution, which will later be checked by the monarch or the ruling elite, which will say, okay, yeah, this ticks all the boxes, we must amend this. And they amend the law. And this law, again, in contrast of Nepal, the constitution of the Kingdom of Nepal 2047 was formed by commission, which was created by a commission formed by the King Birendra, who was the head of state. Okay, I apologize for the grammar. Like I typed all of this in haste, so I can obviously see some grammatical errors right now. So still, please take it as a grain of salt because it's my first time. Anyways, in contrast of Nepal, like the before 2063 BS, Nepal used to be the Kingdom of Nepal, and then the government overthrew the king, and then we became a sovereign nation instead of a kingdom. And the Kingdom of Nepal 2047 was created by a commission formed by King Birendra. King Birendra is one of the most respected kings in our country, and he formed a commission to create the Constitution of Nepal of 2047. So moving on. So then again, this is the most accurate and the most probably the most good constitution out of all. The constitution made by experts. So experts are hired by the ruling elite to draft a constitution. So like unlike other assemblymen and other people, like obviously a person in the executive field might have some knowledge to make laws, but they might not have the amount of expertise the experts carry to make the laws. So the ruling elite or the monarch hires experts to make up their constitution. So like look, experts are hired by the ruling elite to draft a constitution. The experts excellently draft a constitution. The constitution is later reviewed by the ruling elite and amended. So the constitution which is drafted is reviewed by the ruling elite. Then it's later on its stage amended. So the Constitution of Nepal 2015 was a constitution formed by, oh my god, look at the grammatical errors I've made. The constitution was formed. That I'm only realizing this now because I was obviously tired and creating this in a haste. Like I created a video before this, but that did not like have its audio shared. So like I created it in a haste. Like it's like 12:03 a.m. right now. That's why. Please do excuse this stupid. Oh my god, I forgot how to speak English. Stupid grammatical error right now. So, anyways, the Constitution of Nepal 2015 was formed by a group of experts. Moving on. Finally, the most democratic way of making a constitution. Constitution made by a referendum. The legislative drafts a constitution and a referendum between the people of the nation is hosted to choose. It's not top choose. I'm so sorry, guys. It's to choose. Hosted to choose the constitution or consider it null and void. By far the most democratic process out of the four mentioned above. As I said, now this time this is the true meaning of democracy. The people themselves are involved in drafting the constitution or in amending the constitution. So the legislative body, the parliament, makes the constitution of the nation, drafts it in a version, and then bestows it upon us, the sovereign people of Nepal. and we have the job to vote, to make the constitution, either to amend it or to consider it null and void because it's not good. It is again by far the most democratic, I'm so sorry, democratic way of drafting a constitution, because what have we seen before? Like, constitution made by assembly, like members are elected to form an assembly by the executive. So like the general public is not involved at all whatsoever. So it's not democratic at all. Same goes with the commission. The monarch directly chooses them. So like the general public is not even involved. That's not even democratic at all. And look, the constitution made by experts. Sure, the experts are hired, which is good. But again, is the general public involved? No, right? So how is that democratic? Like, if we live in a democracy, isn't the public supposed to be involved too? And then there we have the referendum, which is by far again the most democratic way because the public is directly involved. The public is the reviewer in this case. Like before, it was the ruling elite, but now it's us. Definitely us. Us. So now, Nepal did not have a referendum to draft a constitution, but did have a referendum between 2045, 46, and 47 BC to choose between the panchayat or the reformed monarchy. So then again, in contrast to Nepal, like all of these three methods I mentioned above to make a constitution, we have made a constitution using these three methods, except for this one method. But a referendum was still hosted to choose between panchayat or the reformed monarchy. Panchayat was basically, the king acting as the head of the state and head of the government, both taking all of the power, putting the close to political parties. And the reformed monarchy is like, almost like a parliamentary system of some sort, even though the king had most of the power. So then again, that's it. And I've yapped for like 27 minutes straight. And I again thank you so much for visiting my channel, and thank you so much for staying with me in this process of me making this video. Like, I have a sore throat now because I've been speaking for 27 minutes nonstop. Hope you liked the video. I'm open to any feedbacks in the comments. Thank you very much. It's me, Abhay Bora, and I want to peace out. Good night to you all.